The ancient spiritual wisdom that your thoughts create your reality may now have scientific backing in quantum physics. For centuries, mystics, sages, and seers have taught that the mind holds the blueprint of our lives, that intentions shape the unfolding of events, and that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain, but the very force steering existence. Until recently, this idea has lived on the fringes of scientific respectability. But that boundary is starting to fracture. Physicists are now uncovering evidence suggesting that consciousness is not just a passive observer of the world, but an active participant in its formation. And more remarkably, it's not only conscious thought that's involved. Your subconscious mind, the part you barely notice, might be doing the heavy lifting when it comes to shaping reality at the quantum level. This is not science fiction. This is a growing area of legitimate scientific inquiry that is drawing a strange and beautiful connection between the mechanics of quantum particles and the hidden dimensions of human awareness. These insights are challenging the foundation of how we understand time, space, and causality. You've heard it said before, thoughts become things. But what if that phrase is more than just a motivational slogan? What if it's a simplified expression of a principle that quantum physics is now beginning to mathematically describe? At the heart of this video lies a profound question. Are the greatest minds in quantum physics proving what spiritual teachers have known for millennia? That consciousness creates reality at its most fundamental level? This question is not just intellectually interesting, it's transformational. If true, it would mean that the world around you is not an objective stage you're watching, but a dynamic canvas reacting to the brushstrokes of your own subconscious mind. Every fleeting thought, every subtle belief, every emotional undercurrent. These would not just influence your perception of reality, they would construct it. Throughout this video, you'll journey into the realm where the boundaries between science and spirituality are evaporating. You'll see how the subconscious mind could very well be interacting with the quantum field, how ancient wisdom aligns with modern physics, and why your role as a creator of reality is not metaphorical but literal. This is not about theory. This is about understanding the code behind the scenes of existence. By the end, you'll have a radically different view of what your subconscious is truly capable of, and the power you've been wielding all along. There's a place where particles flicker in and out of existence, where location, speed, and form shift depending on whether or not they are being watched. A place where the laws that govern your everyday experiences seem to fall apart and reassemble in completely different ways. This isn't the realm of imagination, it's the quantum world, and it operates by rules that are still baffling the sharpest scientific minds. One of the most striking phenomena in quantum physics is known as the observer effect. This is not a philosophical metaphor. It's a measurable, repeatable outcome in some of the most famous experiments in physics, especially the double-slit experiment. In the double-slit experiment, particles such as electrons or photons are fired at a barrier that has two openings, or slits, and a screen behind it to capture where the particles land. When no one is measuring which slit the particle goes through, the results form an interference pattern on the screen, a pattern suggesting that each particle behaves like a wave, going through both slits simultaneously and interfering with itself. But when a measuring device is placed to determine which slit the particle goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The particle behaves like a discrete object, going through only one slit. The only difference between the two outcomes is whether or not an observer is involved. This is more than a quirk. It implies that observation collapses the quantum wave function, turning potential states into one definitive reality. But here's where it gets even more compelling. The collapse doesn't seem to be caused by the machine recording the measurement. It's the awareness of the result, the conscious registration of the outcome, that brings the particle into a definite state. Now pause for a moment. This is the scientific foundation for something mystics have been claiming all along, that reality is shaped by awareness. Not just influenced, shaped. The double-slit experiment seems to suggest that particles remain in a state of potentiality, a field of probabilities, until consciousness enters the equation. And once it does, those infinite probabilities condense into a single experience. This is not merely philosophical. This is the essence of quantum measurement, and it's still unresolved in physics today. Many interpretations try to sidestep the conscious observer, but others, like the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation, suggest that consciousness is not just involved, but necessary to resolve quantum ambiguity into physical reality. And this opens the door to a far deeper implication. Not only does consciousness influence reality, but it may be fundamental to its very existence. The parallels to spiritual teachings are impossible to ignore. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions have taught that intention, thought, and awareness can mold the circumstances of life. From the Hermetic principle of mentalism, the all is mind, to modern teachings on manifestation, there's always been the claim that reality conforms to the structure of consciousness. Now, science is beginning to whisper the same message. The observer effect mirrors the process of manifestation. Think of it this way. Before observation, a particle exists in a cloud of probabilities. Likewise, before conscious intention, your future exists as a set of possible outcomes. But as soon as awareness is applied, through observation in physics, or through intention in your life, those probabilities begin to narrow. One potential becomes actualized. This is not a stretch, it is a one-to-one reflection of the quantum principle. But it goes deeper. The observer in quantum physics is not limited to conscious, analytical thought. If subconscious processes are also forms of awareness just beneath the surface, then they too may participate in collapsing probability into reality. That means your subconscious, operating below the level of deliberate thought, could be constantly interacting with the quantum field, shaping the outcomes of your experience. That's a radical statement, but it fits. Your subconscious is active 24/7. It processes environmental cues, interprets symbols, reacts to emotions, and repeats behavioral scripts, all without your conscious involvement. If this part of you holds expectations, fears, beliefs, and stories, and if these are constantly broadcasting into the quantum field, then they would be responsible for organizing the very events that seem to happen to you. In this light, the observer effect isn't just a physics anomaly. It becomes a bridge between science and spirituality, a signal that what ancient teachers knew may be more accurate than modern skepticism allows. Think about this. If the simple act of observation can change the behavior of subatomic particles, then what does that say about your daily reality? Every moment you're perceiving, judging, expecting, and reacting. Even more, your subconscious is interpreting and influencing far more than you realize. So the question becomes not whether you influence reality, but how often you're doing it without even knowing. This is the thinnest part of the veil between science and spirituality. The double-slit experiment becomes not just a strange result in a lab, but a mirror held up to consciousness itself. In that mirror, science and mysticism reflect each other. One through data and equations, the other through insight and inner experience, but both pointing to the same truth. The observer is the architect of the observed. For too long, we've separated science from spirit. But quantum physics is pulling those two worlds together, not through poetic metaphor, but through mathematical consequence. It's showing that the reality you experience is not a fixed object outside of you, but a fluid field shaped by your deepest level of awareness. And that awareness is not only in the front of your mind. It lives deeper, quieter, in the part of you that breathes without effort, reacts before you think, and believes without logic. That's where your power resides. That's where your influence begins. The greatest scientists and the greatest sages may have been studying the same force all along, one with many names, but one undeniable effect. Reality bends to the mind that knows how to look. The conscious mind is the voice you hear in your head, the one that analyzes, reasons, questions, and decides. But it's not the primary driver of your experience. Beneath that voice, there's a vast reservoir of processing power operating quietly, continuously, and profoundly. That is your subconscious mind, and it might just be the link between human awareness and the quantum field. Let's begin by clarifying what the subconscious is, not in mystical terms, but in functional ones. From a scientific standpoint, your subconscious handles the overwhelming majority of the brain's tasks. According to cognitive neuroscience, your brain processes an estimated 11 million bits of information per second, but your conscious mind is only aware of about 40 to 50 bits. The rest flows through subconscious channels. This means your subconscious is reading facial expressions, tracking time, regulating hormones, scanning for threats, recalling memories, decoding language, interpreting tone, and even adjusting posture without asking for your permission or attention. In other words, your conscious decisions are barely the tip of the iceberg. The true machinery of experience runs below. Now think of the implications this has for the quantum field. If consciousness participates in shaping quantum outcomes, and the subconscious is doing most of the perceiving and interpreting, then it stands to reason that the subconscious plays a dominant role in how your reality is continuously structured. This is not idle speculation. There's a growing body of evidence that mental states, especially those beneath conscious awareness, can produce measurable effects on physical systems. Experiments in fields such as parapsychology, biofeedback, and remote intention have shown that focused states of mind can subtly influence everything from random number generators to biological tissue. These effects, while often small, are statistically significant and consistent enough to raise serious questions about the role of the mind in physical causality. And what part of the mind is being activated in these experiments? Not the analytical, thinking mind, but the internal state of belief, intention, and emotional resonance, all rooted in subconscious dynamics. Consider meditation. When practiced regularly, it alters brain wave frequencies, calms the nervous system, and opens access to deeper layers of consciousness. But meditation does more than relax the body. It restructures subconscious activity. Functional MRI studies have shown that long-term meditation changes the structure of the brain's default mode network, the set of circuits associated with self-referential thought, memory consolidation, and inner narrative. In a quantum context, this is significant. If your baseline state of awareness is reorganized through subconscious training, then your habitual interaction with the quantum field also changes. What you're essentially doing is rewriting the subconscious code that determines which probabilities become outcomes. This makes the subconscious not just a mental archive, but an active quantum participant, constantly influencing how potential collapses into form. Think of your subconscious as a transmitter and receiver. It's tuned to a specific frequency, which is defined by your beliefs, expectations, fears, desires, and emotional patterns. That frequency is always broadcasting into the quantum field. And just like a radio, it's receiving matching signals, reflected in the events, encounters, and patterns of your life. The idea may sound metaphysical, but even physics gives us tools to understand this concept. Consider the quantum field not as empty space, but as a medium of infinite potential. Contains all possible outcomes all at once. It's like a cosmic canvas awaiting instructions. Those instructions come in the form of interference patterns, fluctuations, and waves that determine what emerges into measurable form. Your subconscious could be the blueprint guiding those patterns. And here's where spiritual teachings align perfectly. Across traditions, from Eastern philosophies to Western mystical schools, there's a core principle: your inner state determines your outer world. Whether it's karma, energetic vibration, or the law of attraction, the message is the same: your unconscious beliefs sculpt your experience. The quantum perspective gives that message a physical framework. Let's break this down further with an example that doesn't rely on anecdote, but on mechanics. Say you consciously desire abundance, success, or love. You visualize it, think positively, repeat affirmations. But your subconscious still holds beliefs shaped by past trauma, social conditioning, or limiting stories. Beliefs that say, "I'm not enough, money is hard," or "love is unsafe." These beliefs operate like programs running silently in the background. They don't need your permission, and they don't care about your surface-level intentions. In the quantum model, the field responds not to conscious desires alone, but to the total signal, and the subconscious provides the majority of that signal. So if your underlying frequency is one of fear, scarcity, or unworthiness, then the field matches that. Events will align not with what you want, but with what you truly believe beneath the surface. That's why transformation isn't simply about positive thinking. It's about recalibrating the subconscious. Meditation, visualization, hypnosis, dream work, and repetition of new narratives. These are tools not because they're mystical, but because they access the deeper strata of the mind that shapes interaction with the quantum substrate. Neuroscience supports this. The more a thought or emotion is repeated, especially with feeling, the more it becomes hardwired into neural pathways. The brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. This is crucial. If the subconscious treats an imagined experience as reality, and if that subconscious is shaping quantum outcomes, then your inner world becomes a rehearsal space for future events. There's also a timing component. The subconscious doesn't operate on the same timeline as the conscious mind. It perceives the now, not through clocks and calendars, but through patterns and cycles. So when you imprint a new belief, especially one that feels real emotionally, it doesn't ask when. It accepts it as now. This may explain the strange time-defying results seen in quantum experiments where measurements made in the present seem to affect the past behavior of particles, a phenomenon known as retrocausality. While this remains controversial, it hints that time, like space, may be fluid within the quantum domain. And if your subconscious resides outside of linear time, processing symbols, archetypes, and emotions without a timeline, then it may be operating in sync with that fluidity. What this suggests is profound. The subconscious may not just influence your future, it might be organizing your present based on a quantum-level interaction with time itself. The more we look, the more the picture sharpens. Your subconscious isn't a vault of hidden memories or emotional baggage. It's an active interface with the quantum realm, the place where particles await instruction, where probabilities yearn for definition, and where existence itself is written by awareness. Here's another important piece. Your subconscious isn't isolated. It's connected to a larger field of collective consciousness. Research in morphic resonance, global consciousness studies, and non-local perception indicate that individuals can pick up on information and patterns that originate beyond their own life experience. This opens the possibility that your subconscious is not only shaping your reality, but synchronizing with others in subtle, coordinated ways. This idea echoes through indigenous traditions, Buddhist philosophies, and Hermetic thought, all of which teach that your mind is a node in a vast web of intelligence. If that web exists and if it is quantum in nature, then your subconscious is both a transmitter of personal intent and a receiver of universal intelligence. This means your potential is larger than your biography. It's bigger than your memories, your childhood, or your traumas. You are not limited to what you've lived. You are tuned into something that extends beyond you. And by reprogramming your subconscious, you're not just changing yourself. You're shifting the signal you send into the wider field. In simple terms, your subconscious is the code that reality reads. This is the key to personal transformation. Not willpower, not superficial effort, but a deep and sustained reconditioning of the subconscious mind. When that happens, the quantum field begins to reflect a different set of outcomes. Not because you forced it, but because you became resonant with it. The science of quantum mechanics and the art of subconscious reprogramming are converging. They point to a singular truth. You are far more powerful than you've been told. But power without awareness can't be used. That's why understanding the subconscious isn't a luxury. It's a responsibility. This hidden mind beneath the surface, quiet, consistent, and infinitely capable, is shaping your life right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you're more prepared. Not when conditions are ideal. Right now. And the better you understand that fact, the more consciously you can participate in what's being created. Because this isn't about believing in magic. It's about knowing the mechanics. At the most foundational level of existence, everything is interconnected. This isn't a metaphor or a philosophical abstraction. It's a scientific phenomenon. Quantum entanglement reveals that particles, once linked, remain mysteriously connected regardless of distance. Change the state of one, and the other responds even if it's on the opposite side of the universe. The implications are staggering. Entanglement is not a theoretical quirk, it's been tested and verified. It breaks the conventional laws of local realism, which state that objects are only affected by their immediate surroundings and that they possess definite properties independent of observation. Entanglement ignores both of these assumptions. It suggests that, on the quantum level, separateness is an illusion. When two particles interact and become entangled, they form a unified system. Measure one particle's spin, and the other's spin is instantly determined, no matter the spatial separation. This occurs faster than the speed of light, defying classical limitations. Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance, because even he struggled with the implications. But today, physicists no longer deny this connection, they measure it. Experiments repeatedly confirm entanglement's validity, and quantum information theory now uses this phenomenon to develop technologies like quantum computing and quantum encryption. But beyond the labs and equations, there's a deeper question waiting to be asked. If particles can remain linked across space and time, what does that say about consciousness? Here's where the parallels with spiritual wisdom come into focus. Throughout history, mystics, sages, and wisdom traditions have spoken about the oneness of all things. They've described reality as a unified field, where individual forms arise but remain expressions of a deeper whole. Quantum entanglement gives that idea a physical foothold. What if the fabric of consciousness is entangled just like particles? What if minds are not isolated bubbles of awareness, but fields of perception that remain connected, subtly influencing and resonating with each other across vast distances? This concept is not as speculative as it may seem. Numerous experiments suggest the existence of non-local consciousness, the idea that consciousness can operate beyond the physical brain and interact with distant systems. In one study, researchers observed that when one person experienced a stimulus, like a flash of light or a sound, another person in a separate room showed a corresponding brainwave reaction, even though they were physically and electromagnetically shielded from each other. These findings are controversial but persistent. They suggest that information may be shared across conscious systems through mechanisms that are not yet understood. If this non-local interaction exists, it would indicate that consciousness is not bound by space, and the subconscious, always active, always receptive, could be the interface through which these connections happen. From a quantum perspective, distance may not matter. The universe behaves as if it's one indivisible whole, and information appears to flow through it without the limitations of time or geography. Entanglement points to an underlying field of unity, what some physicists refer to as the quantum vacuum or the zero-point field. It is from this field that particles emerge, and it may be from this same field that thoughts, emotions, and intentions influence outcomes. This aligns with the core message of many spiritual teachings. You are not separate from the universe, you are part of it in every way. Not just biologically or emotionally, but structurally, energetically, and now, evidently, quantum mechanically. This takes the idea of intention and manifestation to a new level. It means your inner world is not just affecting your personal life. It may be resonating with a much broader field of intelligence. And since entanglement shows that once connected systems remain correlated, it's worth asking, what systems have you been entangled with? Every person you've formed a deep emotional bond with, every object or place you've focused intense attention on, every idea you've poured belief into, these may represent energetic links. And if entanglement applies beyond particles, if consciousness follows similar principles, then these links could influence your life in subtle, persistent ways. Take the idea of collective consciousness. It proposes that humanity shares a field of awareness, where thoughts, emotions, and patterns of behavior ripple through the whole. This is supported by findings from the Global Consciousness Project, which uses random number generators placed around the world to detect fluctuations in coherence during major global events. What's been observed is that during emotionally charged events, both tragic and uplifting, the data from these machines begins to show patterns, as if human consciousness were influencing the physical environment on a planetary scale. This hints at something extraordinary. The subconscious minds of billions may be synchronizing with global shifts in awareness. And if that's happening, then individual change is not just personal, it's participatory. Every subconscious signal contributes to the larger field, shaping not only personal reality but the collective trajectory. Now consider how this might apply to healing, to creativity, or to innovation. If entangled consciousness allows minds to interact across space and even influence matter, then the practice of focused attention, especially at the subconscious level, could be a form of quantum participation. Not metaphorically, but mechanically. That's why intentional rituals, prayers, meditations, and affirmations hold power in so many traditions. They are not mere superstition. They may be structured efforts to synchronize the subconscious with the universal field, to send coherent instructions into a web of entangled connections and receive matching feedback. But this influence doesn't require mystical belief. It may operate on principles we simply haven't fully grasped yet. Quantum biology, for example, is an emerging field exploring how quantum effects play a role in biological systems, photosynthesis, enzyme activity, even bird navigation. If biological cells operate in part through quantum coherence, then why not the brain? Why not consciousness itself? The brain contains structures, such as microtubules, that may support quantum coherence. This means that at the smallest scales of neural processing, quantum information could be at play. And where there's quantum information, entanglement is possible. This suggests that your mind is not a closed loop of thought. It's a quantum-accessible system plugged into the fabric of reality. And your subconscious? It could be managing these interactions without your conscious awareness. Processing patterns, absorbing impressions, sending signals, and receiving information from beyond your personal experience. It might be navigating this entangled landscape like a ship through water, unseen but real, ever moving. This view reframes intuition, synchronicity, and sudden insight. These are not random phenomena. They could be the product of a non-local feedback loop, where entangled consciousness delivers relevant information without any sensory pathway. The more attuned the subconscious becomes, the more clearly these messages arrive. It also reframes emotions. Emotional energy is not just biochemical, it could be vibrational, informational. When you feel deep love, anger, or peace, that energy might resonate through the quantum field, aligning with other entangled systems. The effects may be subtle, but they're not insignificant. Over time, patterns form, and those patterns define the structure of your experience. The world around you may be reflecting back the emotional frequency you consistently broadcast. But not just to you, to others too. That's the universal connection in action. One subconscious signal is never isolated. It enters a matrix of information and echoes throughout the field. Understanding this brings a new level of responsibility. If consciousness is entangled and the subconscious is constantly broadcasting, then you are never truly acting in isolation. Every intention shapes not only your life but also the invisible architecture of reality shared with others. This isn't philosophical, it's operational. You are part of a universal consciousness network. You influence it and it influences you. Just like entangled particles, you are part of a larger system that responds to what you are at the deepest level. So, how do you live with this awareness? The answer isn't control, it's coherence. When your subconscious thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align with conscious values and intentions, you emit a coherent signal into the quantum field. That coherence is what draws in meaningful synchronicities, supportive circumstances, and harmonious connections. Not because you force them, but because you match them. This is the lesson quantum entanglement offers on a personal scale. You don't need to manipulate reality, just harmonize with it. Coherence becomes the bridge between the personal and the universal, between subconscious frequency and quantum possibility. And just like entangled particles mirror each other instantly, You will begin to notice that the world mirrors your inner state with stunning precision. The more coherent your subconscious becomes, the clearer the feedback. The less internal conflict you carry, the smoother your reality flows. This is more than metaphysics. This is quantum alignment. The ancient mystics weren't wrong. They just lacked the vocabulary. Today, the vocabulary exists. The experiments exist. The theories exist. The convergence is happening. Entanglement is no longer spooky. It's fundamental. And your subconscious is no longer a passive archive. It's an entangled participant in a living, responsive universe. You are not separate. You are part of something vast. And the moment you recognize that, you stop asking whether your thoughts matter and start shaping them as if they do. Because they do. There is a silent power that moves through every moment of your life, shaping what appears, what unfolds, and what repeats. This force isn't magic, nor is it coincidence. It operates from a place deeper than your conscious thoughts, operating beneath the surface, continuously translating your inner blueprint into the language of physical events. That blueprint is your subconscious mind, and the language it speaks is quantum probability. Modern physics has shown that reality is not a fixed structure, but a field of potential, waves of possibility waiting to collapse into form. These probability waves are not material until they're measured. They exist in a suspended state, neither here nor there, neither particle nor wave, until interaction brings them into being. This is the nature of the quantum field. It doesn't present a rigid world, but a responsive one. And what determines which potential becomes reality? That's where consciousness, and more specifically subconscious patterns, enters the equation. This is not just speculative metaphysics. Quantum field theory, the most precise and successful framework in modern physics, treats reality as an energetic sea filled with fluctuating possibilities. Everything you experience, every atom, every thought, every encounter, emerges from this invisible lattice of energy. It is not solid. It is responsive. What bridges the invisible with the visible? Conscious influence. And the strongest driver of that influence is not your passing thoughts. It's your deeply held beliefs, most of which operate below awareness. These are the patterns stored in the subconscious, and they are the instructions constantly emitted into the quantum field. To understand manifestation at the quantum level, you first need to understand that the universe responds to coherence. When a system vibrates with internal alignment, it exerts a more powerful influence on the field. Random, contradictory signals, like scattered thoughts or unfocused intentions, create noise. Coherent systems, however, create resonance. They imprint more clearly onto the field of potential. Now consider this. Your subconscious doesn't operate in fragments. It's not distracted or inconsistent. It runs patterns 24/7, pulling from a lifetime of emotional impressions, belief structures, and psychological programming. These patterns form a coherent signal, even if that signal is unintentional. And that's the key. Most people are manifesting constantly, but they are doing it unconsciously. They hold subconscious beliefs about limitation, unworthiness, fear, scarcity, and these beliefs act like codes imprinted on the quantum field. So the field, in return, collapses probability into events that match those codes. Not because the universe is punishing or rewarding, but because it is mirroring. The quantum field doesn't judge. It reflects. It doesn't filter by moral worth or conscious desire. It responds to frequency and structure. That means if someone holds a subconscious belief that they are unsafe in the world, the quantum field does not counteract it. It mirrors it. Situations arise that validate the underlying fear. The subconscious becomes the unseen architect of recurring problems. This is why conscious intention alone is often insufficient. You can visualize abundance, speak affirmations of love, or create vision boards for success. But if the underlying subconscious programs contradict those visions, the output will be fragmented. There is no coherent signal. The field responds with mixed results. To manifest effectively at the quantum level, the subconscious must be brought into alignment with conscious intention. That is not a mental exercise. It is an energetic one. It involves shifting the actual imprint that your subconscious is broadcasting. It involves rewriting the internal coding so that your inner signal resonates with the outcome you desire. Start by understanding how these subconscious codes form. They are not random. They are built from repetition, emotion, and significance. Whatever patterns have been repeated most often, with the strongest emotional charge, become the dominant scripts. These scripts are not stored as language. They are stored as energetic templates. That means the subconscious isn't processing logic, it's reacting to frequency. And frequency is shaped by emotional tone. If your conscious mind says, "I am successful," but your emotional state is filled with anxiety and doubt, the subconscious does not register success. It registers anxiety. That emotional tone is what the quantum field receives as your actual signal. So how do you shift that? First, recognize that the subconscious is most receptive in altered states. These are moments when brainwaves slow down from the high frequency of active thinking into slower rhythms, alpha, theta, and even delta states. This is why techniques like meditation, deep breathing, visualization before sleep, and hypnosis are powerful. They soften the filters of the conscious mind and open direct access to the subconscious. In those states, you can begin to impress new patterns. But not just through words, through emotional frequency. You must feel the outcome as if it is already real. The subconscious does not distinguish between imagined experience and actual experience. It responds to the emotional content of both. So when you repeatedly generate the feeling state of your desired reality, you're laying down new patterns. These patterns, in turn, become the subconscious blueprint. And once the subconscious blueprint changes, the quantum field begins to respond. Now let's go deeper. What are you actually influencing in the quantum field when you manifest? You're not moving atoms with your mind. You're not manipulating reality through brute force of will. You are influencing probability amplitudes, the mathematical descriptions of potential outcomes. When these amplitudes shift, the likelihood of certain realities increases, while others fade. Think of it as adjusting the signal strength. The stronger and more coherent your subconscious alignment, the higher the probability that the desired outcome will collapse into your experience. It doesn't guarantee specific results instantly, but it shapes the field's tendencies in your favor. This is not superstition, it's quantum mechanics with a human interface. The most powerful interface is coherence between thought, feeling, and subconscious pattern. When all three align, the signal becomes unmistakable. The field doesn't guess, it responds. Here are several techniques designed to help you establish that coherence. 1. Emotional rehearsal. Before sleep or immediately after waking, enter a relaxed state and feel the emotional experience of your desired reality. Not just visualizing it, but feeling it in your body. What does it feel like to have already achieved it? Let that sensation saturate your subconscious. 2. Pattern replacement. Identify dominant beliefs that contradict your intention. Write them down. Replace them with emotionally charged affirmations that feel believable. Pair these affirmations with breathwork or meditation to deliver them directly to the subconscious. 3. Quantum journaling. Write from the perspective of your future self who has already experienced the desired outcome. Use present tense language. This practice helps collapse the timeline between intention and realization by creating neural pathways that reinforce the new identity. 4. State priming. Use breath, music, or movement to induce high vibration states such as gratitude, joy, or inspiration. These states elevate the emotional frequency of your subconscious patterns and charge them with more influence. 5. Frequency alignment. Regularly check your emotional baseline. What emotional state are you living in most of the time? That's the frequency your subconscious is sending out. Adjust your internal state throughout the day through mindfulness, redirection of thoughts, and physiological resets. Remember, the quantum field doesn't speak English or mathematics. speaks vibration. It receives frequency patterns and responds with aligned outcomes. The more precise and emotionally coherent your frequency, the more clearly the field mirrors your intention. And this is where your subconscious becomes a quantum sculptor. Every belief you carry, every emotional imprint you've stored, every assumption you've absorbed, all of it is shaping the quantum clay of your life. The universe is not waiting for your conscious request. It is already listening to your subconscious command. When you understand this, manifestation becomes less about control and more about clarity. You don't need to force reality to change. You need to become the clear signal that aligns with the version of reality you wish to experience. The most powerful question you can ask is not, "What do I want?" but, "What is my subconscious already asking for?" Because that's the signal the quantum field is already answering. So, become aware of the subconscious story. Rewrite the emotional script. Breathe life into the new frequency. Then release. Let the field handle the how. It always does. Manifestation isn't magic. It's resonance. You are the transmitter. The universe is the amplifier. And the moment your subconscious and your conscious self speak the same message, that message becomes your life. You are not a passive observer in this universe. You are not here to be tossed around by chance, reacting to a world that happens without your input. Whether or not you've realized it yet, you are constantly shaping the quantum field with every thought, emotion, and subconscious imprint. You are, in every sense, a quantum creator, but understanding that truth and living from it are not the same. To live as a quantum creator, you must take conscious responsibility for the subconscious influence you emit. This requires more than knowledge. It demands practice. It means retraining your emotional reflexes, sharpening your mental focus, and actively directing the field through internal alignment. Your life is already the output of countless subconscious signals. Those signals are composed of your past experiences, unresolved emotions, and learned patterns. Without intervention, they continue to loop, producing reality by default. But once you realize this, you have the power to shift from reaction to authorship. This transition starts by becoming intentional about the energetic state you live in. Every emotion carries a frequency. That frequency is not metaphorical, it is measurable. High-frequency emotions like gratitude, love, and joy create coherent brain and heart patterns. These patterns amplify your influence on the quantum field. Low-frequency emotions like guilt, fear, and frustration generate dissonance. That dissonance translates into chaotic, inconsistent results. So the first principle of living as a quantum creator is emotional state awareness. You must observe your default emotional climate, not occasionally, but habitually. What state do you spend most of your day in? What do you feel when you wake up? When you're alone? When no one is watching? The answers to these questions reveal the energetic blueprint you're using to interact with the field. And if you want to rewrite that blueprint, you must become intentional with your state, on purpose and repeatedly. You can train this through simple but powerful daily exercises. 1. Morning calibration. Begin each day by consciously shifting into an elevated emotional state before doing anything else. Don't reach for your phone or get pulled into mental activity. Instead, direct your attention inward. Consciously create the emotion you want to send into the day. Feel it, hold it, let it build. This 5-minute ritual tunes your signal before the noise of the world interferes. 2. Pattern interruption. Throughout the day, monitor your state like a scientist. When you catch yourself slipping into unconscious patterns, complaint, worry, tension, pause. Interrupt the pattern immediately with breath, movement, or a power phrase you've programmed for reset. Then replace the emotional state with one you want to amplify. 3. Emotional conditioning. Choose one elevated emotion per week to focus on. Let's say it's gratitude. Throughout that week, practice generating gratitude not just for what's already present, but for what's coming. Train your subconscious to connect that emotion with desired outcomes. This conditions the field to associate manifestation with elevated energy. These exercises are not just psychological. They are quantum training. Each one broadcasts a new signal into the field. Repetition encodes it into the subconscious. The stronger the emotional charge behind it, the deeper the encoding. The next layer of quantum creation involves direct communication with the subconscious. Your subconscious mind is always listening, but it responds best in particular states. These are brainwave states like theta or alpha, which occur during meditation, hypnagogic moments before sleep, or periods of relaxed focus. In these states, the gatekeeper of the conscious mind relaxes, and the subconscious becomes impressionable. Use these windows strategically. Before sleep, create a short mental movie of your desired reality. Don't just see it, feel it. Experience it from within your own body. Let that image saturate your inner world. As you drift into sleep, your subconscious begins working with that image as if it's real. It becomes part of your programming. Repeat the same scene for several nights, refining it for clarity and emotional power. Upon waking, revisit that mental movie. Do it before you check the world outside. This reinforces the subconscious instructions you gave it the night before. Tells the field, this is the pattern I'm living from today. These repeated emotional visions become your new operating code. They build neural and energetic bridges between where you are and where you want to be. Over time, they replace reactive programs with intentional ones. But there's another layer even deeper: identity. Living as a quantum creator means adopting the identity of someone who influences reality through internal mastery. This is not just a belief, it's a way of being. And identity is the most powerful driver of subconscious signals. If you still see yourself as someone struggling to change, someone hoping things work out, or someone waiting for signs, then those are the instructions you're sending to the field. You are affirming a reality of limitation. But when you become the person who creates from alignment, the field begins to respond accordingly. Identity is energetic. It informs behavior, emotion, and subconscious expectation. And expectation collapses probability. You must ask, who am I being on a quantum level? This isn't about arrogance or pretending. It's about congruence. When your identity aligns with your intention, everything begins to organize around that frequency. To build this alignment, use the following practice: quantum identity mapping. 1. Define the version of yourself who already lives your desired reality. Not just what they have, but how they feel, how they think, how they speak, how they walk into a room. 2. Each morning, read a short identity statement written in the first person present tense. For example, I am the calm, clear, focused energy that creates results with precision. My inner world shapes my outer world. I influence reality from within. 3. Throughout the day, act from that identity. When challenges arise, ask, what would this version of me do? Not what would the old version do. Anchor your responses to the upgraded blueprint. This repeated rehearsal forms a bridge between intention and embodiment. And once identity shifts, reality accelerates. There's one more piece that separates passive knowing from active quantum creation: detachment. To truly influence the field, you must allow the outcome to unfold without gripping. Attachment creates resistance. The signals lack. It tells the field, I do not have this yet, and I'm desperate to get it. That signal delays realization. But detachment is not indifference. It's clarity. It's the calm confidence of someone who knows the blueprint is already active. Someone who doesn't need to check the quantum field every 5 minutes to see if it worked. Detachment allows the wave of probability to collapse naturally, without interference from fear or control. Train detachment by practicing trust. Each time you feel the urge to obsess, to doubt, or to force, return to your state. Return to your frequency. That's the only part you truly control, and it's the part that shapes everything else. Now let's summarize this new way of living. Your thoughts, when emotionally charged and repeated, become subconscious patterns. These patterns form the instructions your subconscious sends into the quantum field. The field, in turn, collapses probability based on the coherence and consistency of those instructions. Do you influence this process through daily emotional awareness, subconscious reprogramming, identity alignment, and detachment? You do not need to master this all at once. Begin with small, repeatable acts. Shift your emotional baseline. Interrupt old patterns. Practice feeling your future. These actions may seem simple, but their quantum impact is immense. You are not reacting to the world. You are projecting onto it. You are not waiting for proof. You are generating resonance. And every time your subconscious and your conscious mind speak the same language, reality listens. So begin to live not as someone hoping for change, but as the architect of alignment. The quantum field does not wait. It responds to the signal you are broadcasting right now. What are you sending? Because living as a quantum creator means understanding this one truth. Your life is not happening to you. It's happening through you. For thousands of years, human beings have spoken about the hidden power of the mind, not as a metaphor, but as a force capable of altering reality. The mystics of Egypt, the sages of the East, and the seers of indigenous traditions all shared a common understanding that consciousness does not merely observe the world, it co-creates it. Now, physics is beginning to catch up. What used to be called superstition is being reframed in scientific language. The energetic rituals of ancient temples now echo in quantum experiments. The coded teachings once preserved in secret societies are surfacing through data and equations. And in this convergence, something extraordinary is happening. The lines between mysticism and modern science are no longer clear. The human subconscious, long revered as a gateway to spiritual truth, is being understood as an interface with the quantum field. And the deeper this understanding grows, the more it validates what the ancients always knew. Start with Hermeticism. This ancient philosophy, rooted in pre-dynastic Egyptian wisdom and passed through the Greeks, centers on one core principle: as within, so without. The idea that internal states mirror external conditions is not symbolic. It's literal. This Hermetic axiom speaks directly to how the subconscious projects energy into the field. When your inner world is saturated with coherence, clarity, and intent, the outer world responds accordingly. When it's clouded with contradiction, confusion, and fear, reality reflects that distortion. That's not just a spiritual belief, it's a quantum mechanism. Consciousness, especially at the subconscious level, acts as an ordering principle. It instructs the field. It collapses possibilities into outcomes that match internal frequency. The Buddhists speak of emptiness not as nihilism, but as the pure potentiality behind all things. This echoes the quantum vacuum, the so-called nothingness from which particles emerge. According to Buddhism, clinging to form creates suffering. In quantum language, attachment to fixed outcomes collapses the wave function too early, eliminating richer potential timelines. The act of non-attachment, deeply central to Buddhist practice, frees the mind to engage with the field in a more fluid, open-ended way. And science is just beginning to explore the implications of that openness. Indigenous cultures, from the Hopi to the Zulu, have maintained oral traditions about dreaming the world into being. They hold ceremonies to align inner vision with outer conditions, to call forward rain, abundance, or healing. These aren't rituals of mere belief. They're vibrational alignments. The rhythmic drumming, the chants, the dance, each of these activates brainwave states like theta and gamma, which are now known to synchronize hemispheres of the brain and tune the body's energetic output. This isn't metaphor. It's resonance. It's physics. Modern science, for all its skepticism, is starting to map the same terrain. Take the work of physicists exploring consciousness-based models of reality. Researchers like Amit Goswami, Henry Stapp, and Dean Radin are pushing against the old assumptions of materialism. They suggest that consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain, but the ground of being itself, the source from which matter arises. Goswami, a quantum physicist, argues that consciousness collapses the quantum wave function and thus selects the reality we experience. His theory, once dismissed as fringe, is gaining traction as traditional models fail to explain quantum anomalies. Stapp, who worked with Heisenberg, makes a similar claim, that the mind influences matter through the act of focused attention, especially when that attention is laced with emotional charge, a state generated by the subconscious. And then there's the Global Consciousness Project, led by researchers at Princeton. It uses random number generators across the planet to detect shifts in global mental states. During major collective events, meditations, celebrations, or crises, the data shows statistically significant deviations from randomness. In other words, collective consciousness appears to influence physical systems, even at a distance. That aligns directly with what indigenous traditions have practiced for millennia. Another area of convergence is epigenetics, the study of how gene expression is influenced by environment and behavior. Ancient traditions have always emphasized the power of mental and emotional discipline to shape health and destiny. Epigenetics offers a bridge between that insight and cellular biology. Emotional states, beliefs, and even intentions influence the way genes are activated. That means your internal world doesn't just metaphorically affect your body. It literally rewrites the genetic instructions your cells follow. And your subconscious is the architect behind those instructions. The parallels don't stop there. In quantum field theory, all particles are seen as vibrational excitations of underlying fields. Everything is energy vibrating at specific frequencies. Hermetic teachings describe reality as composed of vibrations long before scientific instruments could measure them. The Emerald Tablet of Hermes speaks of vibration as the key to all manifestation. That's not mystical language, it's a direct conceptual match with modern field theory. Even the chakra system in Eastern traditions corresponds to key nerve plexuses and endocrine glands. Practices designed to activate these centers are now shown to regulate hormonal balance, immune function, and emotional stability. These effects are not secondary. They're causally linked to shifts in energy flow, which are measurable through biofeedback and neuroimaging. Why does all this matter? Because it signals a revolution not just in science, but in the story we tell about consciousness itself. For centuries, the dominant view in Western science has been materialism, the idea that everything can be explained through physical matter and its interactions. Under this view, consciousness is seen as an emergent property of the brain, nothing more than a biochemical illusion. But this model is failing. Cannot explain why observation changes outcomes in quantum experiments. It cannot account for near-death experiences or telepathic phenomena, both of which have mounting evidence. Cannot clarify why the placebo effect, driven by belief alone, produces real physiological change. And it certainly cannot explain why traditions across geography and history have all described the same energetic principles. So a new paradigm is emerging, one that does not reduce the mind to matter, but instead recognizes matter as shaped by mind. This is not mysticism disguised as science. It is science finally expanding to meet the complexity of consciousness. And in that expansion, ancient wisdom is finding its rightful place, not as outdated superstition, but as foundational insight into the true nature of reality. The subconscious, once viewed as merely the storage unit of past trauma and automatic behavior, is being redefined. It is now seen as the interface between self and source, a processing system that transmits frequency, encodes belief, and informs the quantum field about what version of reality to stabilize. Ancient practices like meditation, mantras, sacred geometry, and energy alignment were all designed to optimize this interface. They weren't just spiritual rituals, they were protocols for quantum interaction. Each one tuned the body, the mind, and the subconscious to a specific vibrational field. And that field wasn't abstract. It was the real-world generator of outcomes, relationships, and environments. Now, as instruments become more sensitive and theory becomes more inclusive, We are witnessing science return to these roots. Not out of nostalgia, but out of necessity. Because the questions that matter most, what is reality, who are we, and how do we shape experience, can no longer be answered through particles and equations alone. They require a model that includes consciousness at the core. A model that honors subjective experience, intuitive knowing, and the invisible threads that bind inner and outer worlds. So the next time you hear a teaching from an ancient tradition, pay attention. Not because it's exotic, but because it's probably accurate. The law of correspondence, the idea of prana or chi, the power of sound vibration, the use of intention in ceremony, these are not relics. They are roadmaps. They are descriptions of quantum interaction before quantum theory existed. And the fact that these descriptions match what physicists are now uncovering should give us pause. It should make us rethink what we call advanced. Because maybe the most advanced insights are not the newest, but the ones we've carried all along. The final realization is this: you are part of an unbroken chain. A continuum of consciousness that stretches through time, across cultures, and into the quantum field itself. You are not separated from the wisdom of the ancients. It lives in your subconscious. It speaks through your intuition. It resonates in your energy. And now, science is giving you the tools to understand and apply it with precision. You are not the observer of ancient knowledge. You are the next expression of it. And as you learn to shape your subconscious and influence the field, you are continuing a sacred tradition. One that has always known the truth, that the real power lies within. Now that you've seen how your subconscious is intimately connected to the quantum field, one truth becomes undeniable. You are never just thinking, wishing, or hoping. You are broadcasting. You are selecting. You are shaping. This understanding carries immense potential, but it also carries responsibility. Because the patterns held in your subconscious are not idle scripts from your past. They are active instructions. They inform the quantum blueprint from which your future emerges. If those patterns are left unexamined, they run automatically, unconsciously calling forth outcomes that mirror internal confusion, limitation, or fear. But if you become conscious of what lives beneath your awareness, you gain the ability to update the signal you send into the field. This isn't positive thinking. This is conscious participation in the mechanics of creation. You are not a passive witness to reality. You are a node of creative force, pulsing information into the lattice of the universe. That force doesn't respond to surface-level wishes. It responds to coherent frequency, emotional truth, and the depth of subconscious resonance. To work with that truth, begin now with this simple exercise. Close your eyes. Bring your awareness to the space behind your heart. In that silent depth, visualize your subconscious as a vast landscape, not of thought but of energy. See the patterns that have shaped your past, the beliefs inherited, the emotions stored. Then, with focused intent, release what no longer serves your highest expression. Picture those patterns dissolving into light. Next, feel what you wish to create, not the surface desire, but the underlying state. Is it peace? Is it joy? Is it wholeness? Feel it fully. Let that emotional frequency flood your body. Then send it into the field, not as a request, but as a reality already in motion. This isn't imagination. This is calibration. You are aligning your subconscious with the quantum realm where possibilities take form. And now, as you leave this video, carry one final truth with you. Your subconscious is always communicating with the field. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't pause. It is generating your experience every moment, whether you're aware of it or not. So the question becomes, what reality will you choose to create? Because whether you shape it consciously or unconsciously, the creation continues. And with awareness, it can finally reflect who you truly are. You are the dreamer and the dreamed, the wave and the observer, the source and the expression. Welcome to your true identity as a quantum creator.